Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Lifeline for Daily Living. Yes, this is the place where you can find the answers to your mental health, relationship, and family questions. I'm your host, Jim Hewitt. Glad you've tuned in today. I think you're going to find today's topic very interesting, so I hope you'll stay tuned because we'll be right back. All right. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Lifeline for Our Daily Living. So glad that you've joined me again this week. A couple of weeks ago, I did a two-part series on having the marriage that you've always wanted. I looked at 5 types of marriage, and I looked at the different elements that can keep you and keep you married and have the marriage that you've always dreamed of having. Well, today I want to go exactly opposite of that. I want to look at something that is so vitally important and yet difficult to talk about. It's something that I see a lot with people that come into my office, and it's difficult. It's a difficult topic to deal with. And what I'm really talking about is toxicity. Being in a relationship that is toxic, or being in a relationship with a toxic individual. When you think about it, life is short, and time is so precious. Life itself is precious, and the time that we spend with individuals in relationships is precious as well. Once today is gone, you can never get it back. You can't go back and do a redo, right? You can't do a do-over. Well, the same thing is true in relationships. God never intends for us to spin our wheels and waste our days trying to make others happy that can never be made to be happy. And yet, rarely does a week go by that I don't sit in the office with someone who is crying because they can't make their other person, whoever that is, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, they can't make them happy. And so these people that I'm talking about, these toxic people, they could be friends, they could be co-workers, they certainly could be spouses or a boyfriend, girlfriend, they could be family members. I'm talking today about the whole gamut. I want to zero in on husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, but this applies to other relationships as well. See, God doesn't want us to be in relationships that are toxic. He doesn't desire for that. He never did desire for that. He created us to be in relationship with one another, to be whole with one another, to enjoy life with one another, not spent in toxicity with one another. Sadly, when we look deep within ourselves, we have to realize that maybe I'm in an unhealthy relationship. Relationships start out unhealthy. Some relationships start out healthy, and then the real character comes out once we're married or once we're living together, whatever your situation is. Then it's like the true colors start coming out, and you realize after it's too late, so to speak, that you're in this toxic relationship, and these relationships develop very subtly. I mean, nobody's going to stand up, in front of the preacher or a group of people, and when you're saying your vows, admit that they're toxic. No, nobody. And these toxic people, sometimes they will deny that they're toxic. They will absolutely deny it. They will argue with you about them not being toxic, and yet they're toxic. And so I want you to think about it. I realize this is a difficult subject. Some of you may have decided, I don't want to hear anything about this, and you're tempted to turn it off. I would hope that you'll listen and hear me out on this very difficult. Now, you may be in a relationship that's just fine, it's healthy, it's wonderful, it's loving, it's nurturing, caring, all of those things. But I'll bet you know someone who you've said to yourself, or maybe you've said to them, I think that person that you're with is toxic. There's something not right about the way they're treating you. And so if if that's true, it may not be for you, but if it's true that you know somebody, I would hope that you'll share this podcast episode with them. It's so vitally important. I'm going to share a lot of information today because I get a lot of questions about this issue of being toxic and what in the world is a toxic relationship, and how would I know if I'm in a toxic relationship? Well, I want to give you 10 indicators that would let you know something's not right here and maybe I'm in a toxic relationship. And so let's look at these 10 things and see if we can kind of discover what toxic relationships are all about. Number one, if you're in a toxic relationship, you spend more time fighting than you do enjoying each other. You spend more time arguing and fussing and feuding and fighting with one another than you do enjoying each other's company. We call this a conflict-habituated marriage. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I looked at that type of marriage, and I would invite you to go back a couple of weeks and look at that podcast again. But this is what I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't matter what the issue is, doesn't matter. I mean, they will fight tooth and toenail about whatever. It doesn't make any difference. They spend more time arguing and feuding and fussing and fighting than they do enjoying being in each other's company. In fact, to be in each other's company is to argue and to have open conflict. Sometimes this conflict, unfortunately, spills over into social media. If you're that type of person that takes your personal stuff and your personal arguments and disagreements and post them on Facebook or other social media, I'm going to ask that you not do that. Please don't do that. That just adds fuel to the fire. Please don't do that. But here's the thing: you spend more time fussing and feuding and fighting with one another than you do enjoying being in each other's company. Number two is there's hostility. Now, there's overt hostility, and then there's covert hostility. Overt hostility is, hey, I'm going to get you back, and I'm going to do something to your vehicle. I'm going to call and say something to your boss. I'm going to come to your place of employment, and I'm going to do something, say something that will cause you embarrassment. That's open hostility. Overt hostility. Covert hostility is more of the passive-aggressive type. That I do things behind the scenes. I do things like you're expecting me to pick you up at 5 o'clock after your job's done. At the end of the day, 5 o'clock, I'm supposed to pick you up. I show up at 5:20. Now, I don't call you, I don't text you, I don't instant message you, I have no contact with you at all, but I show up 20 minutes late. That's passive-aggressive behavior. Or if on Monday, I start talking to you about going out on a date, going to a movie on Friday. I start talking about that on Monday, and then when Friday gets here and you're all excited about going and seeing a movie, then I pull back and I say, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. That's covert hostility, passive-aggressive hostility. A third indicator that you're in a toxic relationship is if there's constant criticism and contempt. Constant criticism and contempt. This is the person makes strong efforts to criticize you and demean you, not just in private, but in public. In fact, they wait until they're in public. It might be at a restaurant. It might be at a friend's home. It might be in their backyard when you're having a barbecue. It might be even at church. Anything to demean and to devalue you. And they love to do that when you're in public. They will do it in private. I mean, they'll demean. A smart person would realize this. And you're so stupid that, okay, you get the idea. So there's constant criticism and contempt. Number 4. And this may sound a little weird, but a fourth indicator is avoidance. Now, what I mean by this is that there's often double messages to make you feel confused. A person that comes into my office and they're talking about their significant other person, spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, They will often say, I'm confused about what he or she is saying. I don't get it because on one hand they'll demean me, they'll say something mean to me, they'll do something mean to me, and then when I protest and question their love, they will say, well, of course I love you. How could you even question my love for you? Does that sound familiar to any of you? Maybe it does. This often happens. This is one of the things. So there's double messages so they're not. So they do that. They give. Well, of course I love you after saying something demeaning or devaluing, but they will also withhold affection and then complain that you're not affectionate enough with them. They're the ones that's withholding it. They don't want to hug. They don't want to kiss. They don't want to have sexual intercourse. But then they complain because you're not involved in any of that. So if that's what's going on, that's a good indicator that you may be in a toxic relationship. Number 5 is rigidity. And really it's rigidity with respect to other people, not themselves. So they want to know how long you're going to be gone, who you're going to be with, where you're going, who's going with you, who else is going to be there. They want to know all of those kind of things. And when you tell them that you're going to be home at 8 o'clock, they're watching the watch, and they're watching the clock. And if you're 1 minute late, then they will unleash wrath upon you. That's what I mean by being rigid. They're rigid with regard to other people, but not themselves. Number 6 is name calling. Name calling. This is the dirty fighting kind of thing. The name calling is a definite sign that you're in a definite sign that you're in a toxic relationship. It could be anything from stupid, ignorant, brainless, to ugly, to homely, and then using curse words to describe you. And I'm not going to go over those words here, but if you're in a toxic relationship, you know what I mean by that. So they result to name calling. Now they didn't just when they arrived at adulthood decide to start doing that. This has been happening to them for a long time, and so that's what they do to other people, name calling. Number 7 is, and I get this a lot when I'm talking to people who are in relationship with toxic people, and that is, I don't feel like I can be myself. When I'm around them, it's like I have to act, I have to pretend. It's like I'm walking on eggshells. I have to change my likes. I have to change my dislikes, my opinions, to whatever. And what they will tell me is just to keep the peace, just to keep the peace. Wow. So I become, in a toxic relationship, I become a non-person. I don't have any opinion. I don't have any worth, any value. I am what you say I am. See that? And so I oftentimes when people come to me and they're involved in a toxic relationship, I will ask them, well, who are you? I don't know who I am. Well, who are you? I don't know. I've completely lost that. And usually when I hear someone say that, it's accompanied with tears. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Nobody's even cared about that before. So you're not yourself. You can't be who God created you to be around that other person. Number 8 is the other person, this toxic person, is more like an over-involved parent in a bad way. Not an over-involved parent because I care and I want to protect you. No. This is a person who chooses your friends. Now, the way they do this is more passive-aggressive. So they will act out amongst your friends, right? They don't like your friends. They don't want to be around your friends. They don't want you to have them as friends. And so they will act out in some way. They'll act mean. They'll demean you. They'll demean your friends. They'll make fun of them. They'll do whatever they have to do. So then what ends up happening is that your friends say, well, I can't be around you anymore. And so they start distancing themselves from you because of that toxic person. See that? So they want to pick your friends. Now, think about that for a second. Now, when we're little kids, that's one thing. Parents are trying to guide us and having good, healthy relationships with other people. But when I'm an adult and you're trying to pick my friends, and see, they won't do that overtly. Well, I'm going to pick your friends. No, they will cause such dissension and such criticism and such angst amongst your friends that they will end up, you'll lose all your friends. I've seen this more than once in my years of therapy with people, is they don't have any friends because that person has carved all of their friends out. And now they have no one. And that's exactly what that person wanted. Number 9 is that the toxic person, they are the king, queen of guilt trips. Man, they know how to put you on a guilt trip. I mean, they are proficient at putting you on a guilt trip. I mean, they know exactly how to do that. They know exactly what string to pull at your heart to make you feel guilty. Well, I don't watch this one. I don't understand why you stay with me. I'd be lost out there without you. Now, see that? There's a double message there. It's kind of like a two-edged sword. I wouldn't last without you. Well, sure they wouldn't, because they're depending on you to feed them. See that? And so they are the king or queen of guilt trips. Man, they know how to pour on the guilt, and they do it subtly. They may cry. I want to put that in quotes. They may act sad. They become very, very manipulative. In fact, they do so in a way to make you feel guilty and indebted to them. See that? Indebted to them. Number 10. He or she is your secret lover, but not in a good way. When you think about being somebody's lover, it's usually in a good way, not with the toxic person. Your family and your friends, they protested in in the way they treat you. They don't like the way they treat you, and so what happens is that person, let's say it's your husband, that husband becomes a non-subject when you're with your family, and you hide them. You hide them from your family. You say, well, I've left them when really you haven't. Well, I've stopped seeing them when you really haven't. And so they become that secret lover that you have that nobody else knows about, because your friends, they've had it. I mean, they don't want to be around that person, and they think you're silly for really being in the relationship with that person, and they've told you so. And so you just kind of withhold that information that you're still in a relationship with them. Now, those are 10 indicators that you could be in a toxic relationship. I want to talk for a minute about toxic personality types. Now, I'm not talking about personality types in borderline personality disorder, dependent personality. I'm not talking about that we would diagnose someone with a personality. No, these are types, personality types. These are the types of toxic people that we get involved with. The first one is really kind of goes without saying, and they're the controller. They are the master manipulator and the constant controller. They control what you do, when you do it, how you do it. They will let you know in no uncertain terms. They will let you know if you step outside the bounds. They'll push you back in line. You've got to stay in line. You've got to do what I tell you to do, or else. And they'll throw out threats, the or else. If you don't do this, then this will happen, the or else kind of thing. So there's the controller. The second is the abuser. This is the person who is very needy inside, and when you don't meet whatever that need is inside of them that they have, now you may not know what that need is. In fact, they oftentimes don't tell you what that need is. But if you don't meet that need, then they act in a hostile way towards you. They verbally abuse you. They psychologically abuse you. And in some cases, they even physically abuse you. So there's the controller, the abuser, and then the third type, the third personality type of toxic persons is the too easily angered. This is the person who, I mean, they're a powder keg ready to go off. I mean, they're a nuclear explosion just waiting to happen. And so everybody around them walks on tiptoes. They walk on eggshells. They're very careful what they say, how they say it, because it could be anything. Anything will set them off. If they come home and Johnny's toys are in the floor and they're not picked up, and you haven't picked them up, they start yelling, and I mean, they just go off. To the extreme. I mean, they start yelling, and then we get back into the name calling and all the things that I've talked about before. The other one, so you have the controller, you have the abuser, you have the too easily angered, and then you have the bully. The bully. The bully is the person who is subtle. Think about a bully, at school. Maybe some of you were bullied. Think about that bully at school. The bully who says, I'm going to get you at the end of school. But they do it out of sight of anybody that could be listening. They do it subtly. And so that there's many attempts to bully. They'll threaten you to get you to do what they want you to do, to extort things out of you. Their desires dominate. That's what they want to do. They want to dominate whoever they're around. And so they're this bully, and they're going to push you and push you and push you. Now, again, this may happen very covertly, very behind the scenes in a passive kind of way. Think about it in school. That's the way bullies work. They don't do that inside of the school personnel. They do it when nobody's really looking. It's just those little subtle kinds of things. So you have the controller, the abuser, the too easily angered, and the bully. The next one is the addict, and this is a person, self-explanatory, this is a person who is addicted to some substance, and you become codependent on that individual. You make excuses for them. It's your fault that they're using. You may protest to family, you may protest to friends, but they have this negative pattern of abusing substances. The next one is the negative person. This is a person who, it doesn't make any difference. They're negative about whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It could be sunshiny outside, nice, cool, 75 degrees, beautiful outside, not a cloud in the sky, and they're going to complain about something. You may have taken a long time, many hours to prepare just the right meal, his or her favorite dish, and you've done all the planning, you've done all the stuff there, and they complain about that it's late. It's late. Then you have the blamer. It's your fault. What's going on with me? You see, you're the one causing this. If you didn't do this, if you did that, then I wouldn't get so angry, and I wouldn't yell, and I wouldn't call you names. It's all your fault, the blamer. Then there's the gossiper. The gossiper is the person who loves to talk about everybody but themselves. I mean, it doesn't make any difference, and the more false it is, the better it is. Okay, the greater the gossip, the more juicier it is, the better. And it doesn't have to be true. Most gossip isn't true anyway, but because see, it gives them power. I heard this. So and so told me this and told me this, and it may not have a bit of truth in it. Then there's the arrogant person. This is a person who they're just better than everybody else. I mean, they're God's gift to everybody. They'll stand in front of the mirror and they'll just admire themselves and how beautiful or how handsome they are. And everybody takes a back seat to them. Everybody that's in my orbit serves me. The arrogant person, they're much smarter, they're much brighter, they're more articulate. None of that is true, but that's what they believe. They're arrogant. And then there's the victim. Now, this isn't a person who is genuinely the victim, okay? They play the part of the victim. Well, I see. I don't know why you stay with me. No, you would be better off. You'd be better off to divorce me or to leave me and go live a happy life. See what they do? They're the victim. Everybody's always treating me this way, and yet they're the ones that's causing it. The victim. Okay, so those are the toxic personality types. Now, I've given you a lot of information today, and hopefully that you will go back and listen to this again and again and again till you really get it down. This is such a vitally important topic. I've been thinking a long time about this topic and how to present it, because I've been getting more and more and more people that are involved in toxic relationships that are coming into my office, and they're just in a quandary as to what's going on. So I know that if I'm seeing people in my office that are in toxic relationships, then there's got to be a lot more people out there who are in toxic relationships. That's the reason why I did this podcast. Life is too short. Life is too short to be in a toxic relationship. God never intended for you to be nor to stay in a toxic relationship. Let go of that relationship. The past negative people, the experiences, and focus on good things. There's a passage in, I believe it's Philippians, where Paul says, think on, if anything is pure, lovely, of good report, think on these things. Think on these things. That toxic person has taken such a hold on you and has literally sucked the life out of you. Now it's time for you to have life back. And you can do that beginning today. I want to end this episode with a quote that I found recently. And here's the quote. I have learned that people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. I've learned that people will forget what you've said, they will forget what you did, but they will never, ever will they forget how you made them feel. How does that other person in your life make you feel? When was the last time that you ever thought that you could think about your feelings? Well, I'm asking you today, how does that other person make you feel? Do you feel loved by them, or do you feel confused? Is your life so wrapped up in them that you've lost who you are and what you're about? Have they taken the throne in your life? Have they become the number one in your life? Maybe you're a person who you used to attend church, you used to pray, you used to do all of those things that believers do, and now none of that is true, because that person, that toxic person, has taken such control over you. Well, today can be the first day of freedom for you. It can be. This can be a day when you free yourself from the toxicity. You wash yourself, that toxicity, off of you and out of you. You detoxify your insides, your inner person. You detoxify all of that, and you get up and you look at life in a brand new way, an expectant way, a wonderful way, a way that today is a new day for me. I'm excited about the day, and I'm excited about what God can do in and through my life. You don't have to live, and you don't have to be in a toxic relationship. You can leave there if you choose. I don't advocate divorce. I hate to see divorce. But if you're in this toxic kind of relationship and that other person refuses to change, if you don't get away from that, you're going to go down with the ship. You're going to be like the Titanic. you're going to go down with the ship. Don't do that. Don't do that. Today can be a day when you free yourself from a toxic relationship. Well, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Lifeline for Daily Living. If anything that I have said today regarding toxic relationship has raised some questions or concerns with you, there's 3 ways that you can contact me, and I hope you will. First way is through my office phone. That phone number is 573-732-4575. Again, that's 573-732-4575. Or you can email me. My email address is lifelineonline@hotmail.com. Again, lifelineonline@hotmail.com. A third way is if you're watching this on Facebook, you can private message me. A lot more people are doing that now. You can private message me. You can set up an appointment. You can ask me a question. I want to help you free yourself from a toxic relationship and live the kind of life that God has always desired for you to live. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you right here next time on Lifeline for Daily Living.